I have a couple questions having to do with discovery. And there's been talk at the conference about the impact of Google and Google Scholar, and even a suggestion that we put too much energy, libraries and maybe publishers, put too much energy into discovery tools. I don't subscribe to that personally, but there is that tension that we should, libraries maybe should just focus on providing the content. So my question is, what do you think about that? And the second question that comes with that is a publisher might create, or a vendor might create a discovery tool, but it might be narrow in focus and not, and I'm not talking about the dark matter, I'm just talking about the world of information.
Absolutely.
And how do we collaborate so we don't feel as a library that, oh, we have to get this and that one and that one in order to get a true review.
I think it's an evolving area. I think we've done, there are some nice discovery services out there. I think they are able to meet some of the needs of the library patrons. I think we have a little way to go still to make them really always usable. But I think what we see, and certainly the research we do, is there are different use cases for the different discovery services. So somebody maybe starting from scratch might start with, wanting to investigate a very broad area, might start from Google or Google Scholar and say, let's just cast our net as wide as we can. But then when they want to focus in on either the right answer to the right question, or maybe I know this paper is out there, then I think they're much more likely to go into the library discovery services, which will cut out some of that broader noise and help you to get to what you need to get to. And I think how we bridge those two and then take that sort of seamlessly back into and out of publisher resources, I think is something that we need to keep working on.
If I can follow up, just one thing you talked about, and it's something that I remember from my library school, you used the term newsjacking.
Oh, yes.
And I was taught in my reference class many years ago that the best thing a librarian could be is proactive.
Yeah.
If there's something in the news and you know a professor or a subject is interested in it, provide them in advance. And I want to compliment you on
Thank you.
in that same concept, because I think that's very important in a world where we are swamped with information.
Absolutely.
But again, there's this narrow versus broad. Should that be a publisher role? Should that be a librarian's role?
Or can we work together?
We
to
certainly
make that happen?
can work together.
So I think what we see, for example, is if something comes up in the news like that, the first thing that happens is physicians have a stream of patients come to their door with the Dr. Google, results, or I need you to tell me about this. And if we can work together to put good resources in their hands to say, this is in the news, this is what you need to know. And we have a number of services that either we can go direct to the end users, or we can provide to the library and have sort of as library widgets, if you like. So that if you're in the library and something comes up, we can provide you that sort of, here as a set of resources that might be useful on this topic.
Yeah, I think that's very valuable, and I think for libraries' interaction with their community, I think that's a very important step.
Well, I think in talking about all of this support for researchers and so on, and then this collaboration between librarians and publishers and so on, in what we've just been speaking about and in other areas, how does the open access environment impact all of this?
To some extent, it's just a different route to get your content out into the market. I think there are almost now as many different kinds of open access journals as there are subscription journals. And even in subscription journals, you get everything from pure subscription, institutional subscription, membership models, through to controlled circulation, which is still out there in the market, which were always free. And then you have now a range of open access options. And for me, I think it's all about the essential quality control of the output of research. And I think it doesn't matter whether it's open access or it's it's subscription-based, the important thing is that it's peer-reviewed and trusted. And then I think it's really just a question of how you get it to the end user. And I think for some end users, open access is, as an important route, and obviously for funders, it's very important to them. But in other cases, we want to be able to offer it free to the end users through the library, perhaps. So there's different ways of doing it.
Well, it seems to me that this notion of quality in open access and in subscription-based models is essential, particularly in the medical field. I mean,
absolutely,
it's
crucial.
It's got to be.
Absolutely.
Albert, did you have another?
No.
One thing that we were wondering is if you were sitting in Albert's chair and my chair, what question would you ask yourself?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. I guess it's, what do you see next? Where do you see this whole explosion of information going? And I guess I would ask you the same thing. How are we together going to cope with this explosion of information and help that end user patron, whether they're a law professor or they're a faculty member or they're a physician about to go in and see a patient? How do we get this how do we help them navigate this enormous portfolio of information and give them just what they need and know that they can trust it?
And the whole scholarly process and the growth of literacy and the growth of scholarship, especially from Asia, is making it more and more difficult for someone to keep on top of
it's
this.
A challenge.
Do you think that part of it is the role of academe in requiring publication that maybe needs some sort of changing?
Oof, that's a big question.
Part of it is essential
to
to what's happening. Why is there such a growth of information? How do we give it to our users, provide it to our users in a way that they can even manage it?
I mean, as the investment in research has grown, and it's particularly grown worldwide, and other countries are publishing more and more in English, that the available information has, without a doubt, has grown. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And you talk to any editor of a big, high-quality journal in the US, and they have seen the submissions to their journal grow astronomically. And of course, the amount of space they have to publish has not grown to match that.
And this is just talking about what we think of as more traditional formats.
Absolutely. Yes,
books
absolutely.
Right.
When you start adding in, as I think some of the questioners, you mentioned James Neal's presentation, some of the questions that came up around that, and then the earlier one from Anya Smith. There are so many other formats that libraries are being looked to preserve and make available, that it's as you indicated earlier, it seems to be an overwhelming.
Absolutely.
And it's going to take a team effort to do the best job that we all can do to make it happen.
After World War II, the United States thought we could collect everything. And there were plans to collect everything.
The Farmington Plan was the name.
And it seems that we're in a similar situation now because of the availability of the technology. After World War II, there was another increase in technology. We're looking at it now, and I think we are foolish to think we can solve it right away. And as you said in your presentation, this is a work in progress. It will always will be.
I mean, just for example, if you look at YouTube, I mean, you're looking for perhaps quality medical videos to perhaps show your patients, or maybe teach a class, maybe do a journal club with. We want to provide some video. This is what it looks like. We have looked at tons of videos that are out there on the web, and it's so hard to figure out which ones are trusted, which who did which procedure. Is it something that you can trust, that you can then put into a collection of content that you could use for teaching? How do you editorially vet that with colleagues in the library and academic community and make sure that what you're delivering to those students, tomorrow's professionals, exactly the right trusted information? And it's a big challenge once you get out there into all of these other different media.
It certainly is. It's overwhelming, as we said earlier, and this notion of quality control of this universe of information, it's a staggering
Maybe we,
staggering
yeah,
job. And
maybe we won't be able to do it for everything. Maybe we will be able to. Maybe what our job is together is to signpost. This has the, the quality stamp, and maybe this is something by all means go and look at, but just buyer beware.
And there seems to be, just from the early presentations here at this conference, a real awareness of this problem and the challenges that it
Absolutely.
offers.
I don't think we found the solution yet,
No.
but we're certainly beginning to realize
We're working on it.
the
That's why
scale.
we're here, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Exactly.
Jayne,
Well-
thank you so much.
Well,
We
thank
really
you.
Appreciate you
Very
coming
much
by
enjoyed
and
it.
talking to us.
Thank you.
We've enjoyed it thoroughly, and I've learned a lot.
Okay,
Likewise.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks.